Let me go back to it could have been dealt with at the time, and because there's another issue in North Canton, which is more citywide.
Right.
Then, of course, you're running in Ward 3. But the point is, in that particular thing, some people say that the abatement of Northridge Place happened without any city official knowing about it, elected official or otherwise. And some of us have a hard time believing that. And not really gilding the lily on that particular situation, but just looking forward. John Snyder gets elected to council. Is there going to be an increased oversight of what's going on in North Canton in terms of abatements, in terms of zoning, in terms of a lot of things? Is there going to be an end to the surprises that North Cantonians experience years down the line? You know, for instance, on abatement, they only became generally known in early or March, I think, of 2016.
Right.
Is, you know, with your experience as a council person, and of course you were there when that happened.
I was there.
Where was the failure then, and how are you going to correct that?
The problem is the present, well, they've now, I think they've expunged the ability to issue CRAs. I think they
Right, they have, I think.
Right. Well, and the problem being, it should have, inside the legislation, a residential abatement laid solely in the authority of the housing officer, which is that time the director of permits and inspections, which is a conflict because you can't issue permits on something that you're going to issue an abatement on. You know, in the zealousness of the administration, as it turned down, things became economically tighter. Money was a little tight back in, you know, those years of 11 and 12. They combined jobs. They eliminated the previous director of permits and inspection, Gene Heminger, died. There was a vacancy there. A man was appointed. Some problems happened. He was let go. So then they took the director of economic development, made him the director of permits, along with his other job. He cannot wear that many hats. It requires too much technical training to do either job. He was gifted as an economic development director, but he had no, just minimal experience in housing. So that went through. In his eagerness to satisfy a resident, when they went in to inquire about a zone classification, he said, I can give you 100% tax abatement. That's residential.
And that came at his initiative?
At his initiative.
And nobody in North Canton government knew about it but him?
Well, at that time.
At that time?
At that time. But I'm sure by the end of the day, somebody knew about it.
Somebody knew.
Somebody
so you agree with those citizens who say that somebody, either in the administration or on council, had to know about that?
Right. Now, I was at that time, when it was inquired upon, in 14, because I don't think it was issued until about 15 or 16, I was a president of council. And I did not hear it from the housing officer. I heard it from the developer told me that and that's how I know how it happened. And the particular...
What timetable-wise, when was that?
That was within, I would have been within 30 days of being offered the abatement. The amount, I honestly did not know at that time was that high. I mean, and the reason I know, that's a historical pattern. The people at Acme Click did some development. He went up there and offered them an abatement. It was a small amount of money, $6,000, but
right.
He offered to them. They accepted. One of the civic activists in the community raised Cain about it. The man who owns Acme came to council and rescinded it. He said, I don't need this aggravation.
Overall, what is the quality of the housing stock in Ward 3 in North Canton?
It's in good shape. It's in good shape.
So code enforcement's not a problem?
Not a problem. There's the problem, the major problems as I see it, and from what I see from the constituency, there's a major problem all around the schools, speeding. We have to enforce a little more. The people that live on those streets, they don't understand, they've been there for years, some of them 40 years. The traffic counts are way up. We have Snyder Street on 25 mile an hour, but still the traffic flies through there. And people, you know, if you're a little older, you want to sit in your yard, you don't want to see all that traffic going. But that's a way of life. That's one of the main thoroughfares to get to ingress to the city. The streets need some attention, and they're starting to come apart. They've not over the last 3 years. This past summer, they've started a little more attentiveness to the streets. And Stephanie did a nice job on a couple nice streets.
Is the money there for?
The money's there.
It is there. It's not like Canton. Canton's talking about chip and seal now.
No, yeah. I presented a solution a year before I left of a bond. The reason people don't bond streets generally, the life expectancy of a street is about 15 years.
Right.
So you go out on a 10-year bond, you're not really getting a lot of bang for your buck. But my thought is, we know what we have to do. We've not been doing any curb and gutter, and that actually is basic economic development. Figure that out, figure the streets that need it, lay it out on a schematic, figure the total cost, and then bid the whole project. It may take 5 years to do it. But a contractor will put his equipment on the site. We're going to collect income tax off his whole crew, and we're going to get a fair price. He's going to start early. He's going to start in March. He's going to work up to October, and he's going to be done. But we would borrow that bond and do it, or we'll get some grant money to do it. But here we're tearing up Main Street. It's not been down 5 years. We're going to tear it up and redo it on a bond, or excuse me, on a grant. But that shouldn't have happened. That was inspection. The particular contractor that did that work, it was substandard.
So this is where you say that the experience of John Snyder in North Canton government is going to be a positive.
Absolutely. On North Main, and I'll tell you an instance. On North Main, they paved it, a very well-known contractor. I'm driving a week after it was laid down and the street opened up. I'm driving north to go somewhere, and I noticed a large crack along the curb line. I thought, well, that's ridiculous. I park my car, get out, and I look. I go to the engineer, and I said, Jim, what happened? Well, he said what happened, and they didn't use the right gravel underneath. I said, well, who allowed them to do that? Well, I don't know. And I got the city attorney, I got the contractor, the engineer, we got together, made him dig it up and fix it. You know, we just spent $3 million on that. Somebody has to watch the purse.
Okay. Policing in Ward 3.
As far as the police department?
Right. Is it getting the job done?
Seems to be. I've heard no complaints.
Okay.
We got a very fine police department. We got safety forces in general. I don't see that to be a problem. I'm concerned not so much about the police. I'm concerned about EMS. The runs are starting to grow. We're over 2,000 runs a year, and they're expensive. You've got 2 levies supporting that, the general fund supporting it, and insurance reimbursement supporting it. It's just too much. We got to look at that. I spoke to Chief the other day about that. I said, what's going on there, Chief? That's a lot of runs. They're costly. Something.
What was the answer?
He said, well, it costs a lot of money. I said, I know, and we're going to look at it. I mean,